Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Discovery Channel. Tom O'Connor from beautiful, sunny downtown New Orleans here. And today I am very happy to be speaking once again with the person who reveals everything about Purview that we can't figure out from the upteen press releases and the upteen squared number of unpublished updates that appear overnight to Purview from Microsoft. Greg Buckles of the EDJ Group. Greg, if thanks for being here. If you folks don't know Greg, then well, it's a shame because you need to follow his monthly updates on what's going on with Purview, because it's the only way to keep your sanity if you're using Purview. So
thanks, Tom, for the kind words. I will say that I started 2 years ago tracking all the roadmap releases every month.
Yeah.
And since that period of time, I have finally managed to better map even though cloud software is kind of a release as it goes in a rolling roadmap, the reality is that product cycles still happen behind the scenes. And so I've shifted to going more quarterly because it allows me to better understand where they're pushing these changes with real impact.
Right.
Instead of every month getting little updates. And the problem also is that on their site, it became a little more work and trickier for me to track because, of course, the rollout dates were constantly changing. And so they would update it, which meant that it popped at the top of the list again. And then I would have to look at it and say, I've already seen that feature. Is there anything substantial that's changed about it? No, they just pushed it back another quarter. And then we'd go back and forth. And so finally, I was just like, I'm doing this once a quarter.
Yeah. Great. That's great.
Unless there's something big. If it's a really big piece that pops, then I'll just write an individual piece on that and kind of work it out.
So I'll repeat my statement to people with an edit. Make sure you're getting Greg's quarterly updates on the Microsoft roadmap for Purview, because you can't keep your sanity without it. Honestly.
Well, and I will also flip back and say to everybody out there who is working with Purview and the systems, no one person can know everything because Microsoft is too large. There's too much going on. So we are all dependent on each other as a community to find problems, spot problems, circulate it around, throw me a note like everybody does, saying, hey, I just tried this and it's broken. I'm like, no. Here's your syntax. You need to go here. Look at this. Or they just updated that Microsoft Learn document and added this whole new section on what you're talking about. And here's why you can't find that folder that your custodian says is in their team site underneath this. It's underneath this one area. And that's everything to do with the issue that you've got.
Yeah.
And it happens every week with it.
Good. Well, keep those cards and letters coming in, folks. So what do you got for us? What have you been doing? What's new and exciting?
Lots. Microsoft kind of went into a quiet zone through the end of last year. They didn't release a lot of new features. Things kind of slowed down a little bit, and partially I believe that was because the big news for 2025 was the Microsoft Purview eDiscovery originally had two separate underlying applications. The standard and the premium were different, and they were different architecturally. And what they did was they unified all that into a new, what they call modern UI that started rolling out last year. And by the end of 2025, everybody should now have the current version in your tenant. I haven't yet run into a client or somebody who's yelled at me and we've popped onto a Teams call to look at what they're having problems with. I haven't found the old UI, and they've disabled it, I believe. So everybody's on it. It's new. There's a lot of new stuff there. And
do they still have under the hood standard and premium versions or pricing? Or
well, it's the pricing is based off the users. So essentially, if your tenant, if the average users in your tenant are on the E3 license for about $35 a month, if they haven't raised it recently,
right?
Then that means you've got standard functionality, and there's a checkbox in the unified UI that allows the administrator to turn on or try to enable the premium. And then it checks your licenses and says, hey, do you have rights to this? The premium adds a lot of features, but they're added into the existing UI. So it's not like you've got two separate places. And if you have standard cases from the old days, they legacy rolled over. If you upgrade yourself to premium now, you'll get the enhanced features. So it's instead of maintaining two separate applications, they're maintaining one application with two different levels. And if you're a premium customer, it means that the majority of your users are out there on an E5 license, the
The old
top license.
E5, right?
Yeah,
Hey, by the way, whatever happened to E4?
no clue. I think they just dropped it. I think, knowing Microsoft, it was named something different before, and they just renamed it. So, it probably has to do with the E4 is probably more of a an academic or a governmental version,
Yeah.
um, in the structures, because it has to do with what parts of the system do they turn on.
It's only for the people at Area 51. They get the E4 license. That's
The
super
Alien Force.
super secret
Okay,
probation, right?
got it. So
Okay.
they went quiet during Q4 a little bit, but I believe that was because the new interface was rolling out and they were, of course, getting lots and lots of feedback. And so there was lots of, oh, this is not working. And then a week later it would work, which is classic. And so only recently have we seen a new wave of features that have e-discovery potential impact rolling
Okay.
out as they've kind of gotten past the we've given everybody the new UI. Now we're trying to work on other things, and the new stuff. It's very easy to look at on as like I think when I did this quarter, there were over 1,000 new features that were literally new that popped in across all of it. Um, a lot of updates, a lot of other things like this, but the focus, of course, is Copilot and AI. And the vast majority of the development power in Microsoft, based on the roadmap, my interpretation of that roadmap, seems to all be focused in trying to get AI functionality both baked into the individual applications. So, I'm a Microsoft customer, so I've got Word, I've got Outlook, I've got all these different apps,
Right.
and they want to get Copilot for those people who've paid for it enabled in every one of those and enabled at every different level on it. So that's where a lot of the functionality is coming down the pipe. In my opinion, I believe that basically what they're doing is prefacing this in the next couple of years so that we will have one app. We will have Copilot, and it will be the one app that rules them all.
One ring to bind them. Yep.
That's exactly it. One ring to bind them, and in your tenant find them. So that's going to be it for us in the long run.
Yeah.
I think that's the direction they're going. That's the way it reads to me.
Now,
Um,
as an aside,
mhm.
any sense, and I know it's all very preliminary, but they very quietly a few months ago said that they were shifting some of their AI to Anthropic,
Well,
right?
what they've done instead, it's not necessarily shifting. What they've done is they've converted the existing GPT 5.0 integration to open it into more of an AI API integration so that now customers can decide whether they want to be using
Ah,
ChatGPT as behind Copilot or whether they want to be using Claude or another engine that's running it in the background. I have not yet had any engagements that have had me dig deep into it. And as you know, these days I'm handling cases, so I'm not doing as many big
yeah,
strategic rollouts.
yeah.
Instead, I'm much more on the front line of things. Um,
And I haven't heard of anybody who's done it, and I'm just kind of keeping
yeah,
my ear open to see, who's going to be the first one to bravely dip their toe into that pool.
we
Um,
will see. But I will tell you what, the shift in customers, the worldwide shift in downloads and customers since Anthropic dug their heels in and said, no, we're not going to allow our engine to be used to surveil the U.S.
yeah,
populace,
yeah.
has actually moved the needle in terms of customers. There are customers who've gone off of OpenAI's ChatGPT and have moved to Anthropic's Claude, who are just looking at it as I'd rather have my information being used by somebody who actually is willing to stand up. So
Interesting.
I
Okay.
can see it. I mean, on some of my personal projects that I'm working on that are non e-discovery, I had to make a call recently as to which platform I wanted to, start my beta test and work in, and I picked Claude because I just looked at that and said, no, I'm gonna,
And
part of it was the things I needed to do were
yeah,
handled better by Claude, but not all of it. Part of it was just putting
yeah.
my money somewhere. I'm gonna put it with somebody who's not gonna help people look over my shoulder.
And I'm sure when we look at all the surveys about what's the biggest deal um, in the AI world, and we polled people last week at the University of Florida Law School ED conference. Um, what's your biggest resistance? What's your biggest challenge when it comes to AI? It's security, right? It isn't hallucinations. It isn't accuracy. It's, oh, what about my data? And what are they doing with this tool? Yeah.
Despite the promises that these systems do not keep copies of the original training material, there have been multiple recent papers released in which academics went out there and constructed clever queries going in and were able to receive back 70, 80, 90%
Of what they,
chunks
yeah, yeah. I'm
of
shocked. I'm
of
shocked.
of classic books and things.
Yeah. So
So,
I'm sure that's going to continue to be a big deal for
okay.
Microsoft. Cool. All right.
So let's hit the roadmap items for this quarter,
Okay.
and then I'm gonna take you on a detour after that, and we're gonna deep dive into some things that I've done a lot of recent testing on.
Okay.
So in this roadmap, as I said, a lot of it is Copilot focused, but there's some good news there. One of which is they are looking to add the ability to add watermarks for AI generated audio, video, and images.
And when you
That
say looking to, that means it's under development.
Yeah, I mean, the feature's underdeveloped. It's like everything else in this. I mean, we're road mapping. We're not talking about what's been released except for the new UI.
Yeah.
Um, and I'll differentiate between what's new and what's already out there today. But that's important because one of the biggest questions that I face dealing with my clients on the GC level and down is once we get into discovery, once we've pulled and collected this information, how do we know what is real and how do we know what is Memorex that Copilot generated?
That was a big topic of discussion at the Florida conference
Right.
last week, where there were 10 or 11 judges who were speakers, and it's at the forefront of their
Mhm.
thinking, including Judge
It's
Grimm, who
Yeah.
is a big advocate of
Well,
that. So that's
and
great.
when you
That's any sense of when they're looking to release that. And I know that.
it's on the roadmap. I think it's 2 to 3 quarters down. Is generally when things are first put on the roadmap, it's usually about a 2 to 3 quarter target because they've got to go through with a beta and they've got to get it to unlimited
Yeah, yeah,
release.
yeah,
It
yeah.
goes out. But
So
the
maybe by
important
the end of the year, huh?
the
Maybe.
important part is they are thinking about it and
Yeah.
they're looking, so on a tenant-wide basis, I can say, hey, every single thing that Copilot generates that's video, audio, or image, if it's generation-wise, at least bury that watermark in there.
Cool.
And I
That'd
don't
be
know,
huge.
I've used, and you don't remember, people think watermarks is a giant banner across it. You can put hidden watermarks and things real
You can
easy.
hide them. Yeah. Yeah.
And you and I have done that going way back. I mean, in some of the California energy crisis litigation that I did, we had some of the defense folks out there, or the plaintiffs who were taking our productions for my clients, and they were appearing in hands of other people despite court orders. And so I started watermarking every set differently, and we would have a you know the, we'd have so we'd have one of the DAs come in with send us a note saying, "What do you say about this?" I could then pop it and look at it and go bury that hidden pixels down in that corner, and I could turn around and say, "Okay, this is where it came from,"
Cool.
despite the fact that they were not supposed to give that over here, here, and there. So it's
Yeah.
like a bait. So it's important for us, but what'll be interesting to see is how well the e-discovery processing are able to start picking those things up and flagging items, because the important part of whether it's user generated or AI generated in the end is who do I talk to about ownership? And if it's AI generated, that allows certain custodians a certain level of, well, that wasn't me. That was the AI ate my homework. I didn't say that. They did. And The video stuff is important. I would be more interested when they start embedding automatic either comments, notes, or hyperlinks, or something hidden into the loop items, the Word documents, etc., where the users are using this and saying, "Hey, create this for me." I would really love for there to be some kind of embedded metadata in there that allows us to pick that up and say, "Well, yeah, we did this contract, but you've got this clause in the middle here which we're disputing over, and I need to track the versions back. And right in the middle of that, I need to say, well, look, yeah, well, that clause was found and inserted by Copilot because this person asked a query in there and said, find me a clause that fits this. And then they didn't review it before they plugged it in there. And now we have something, now we know where it came from and how to fight about it properly.
Yep. Yep.
So that's one. Microsoft Teams is getting the app, the local, like you just have the Teams app on your phone, et cetera, is getting chat notes that are going to be persistent.
Okay.
So that's another data source from Teams that we're going to have to be able to remember and find, and where is it and how do we get to it. The compliance portal for Microsoft, the Purview compliance portal in eServer has added fairly recently the ability to import non-Microsoft data into their review sets in a matter. That's great in terms of, hey, what did I had some unique content that came either from a third party, it came from somewhere that wasn't in the Microsoft 365 infrastructure, whether it's local files, etc., and I want to view it in the review area for my scoping, preview, etc.
Sure.
Hidden caveat here, and that's the big red flag, is storage costs. Up to this point, if I'm a Microsoft Purview user and I bring anything I bring into Purview and put it into review set, that doesn't cost me anything because Microsoft is already charging me for it, the original. But it is extra storage. And what they said was, well, that's great. You can bring in outside data, but if you bring it in, we're going to now charge you. And the rates aren't cheap. So they're not exactly what I would call market competitive, given how far the storage, the platform storage costs have gone down across the board for our, for relativity, reveal, Everlaw, and all the rest. I mean, those are competitive pricing with mature features. Now you're going to throw it into the review area in Microsoft for a higher cost. Now you'll get it indexed, and it will be what they call advanced process, which means that basically that they break the containers, they look further down than the basic, and they remove some of the length limits. Your default indexing that you've got in the tenant only goes to a certain length of characters and size, and if you get really, really long documents and things or giant Excel spreadsheets, you may not index the back end of it. That's why you're supposed to do the advanced indexing, and why they enabled that advanced indexing now to automatically happen when you place a legal hold.
Gotcha.
So the legal hold, that was a big differentiator. Before then, it was always like, yeah, I can find it, yeah, I can freeze the area, but I can't use search terms if the matter has very large documents that are specifically relevant to the issues at hand. So it was always a scoping thing. Can we do this or not? Yeah. Anyway, but you can now put external data in there, which is good. Almost everything else that I was seeing are essentially the expansion or features on the new UI. They've returned data sources to it so that we can now, for a case, take our list of our custodians and our SharePoint sites and put it in there once in a case, and I don't have to put them in every single time I create a new search. That was helpful. They now allow us to duplicate searches so that if I need to do 5 variations on a set of terms, I can do that. There's a lot of areas that, and I do want to say, we yell and scream about Microsoft because they are so large and because that's where our data lives and we're living with it. But the PM team for the Purview eDiscovery PM team has been very responsive on a lot of areas. When a client brings me in to look at something and we start running tests on their tenant to find out what works and what doesn't, before I ever release anything or talk about it back publicly, I always, as a courtesy, will send that list of here's what I found to the PM team. And usually about half of what I've found is not an error or an issue that way. What it is it's an area where the documentation wasn't particularly clear,
Okay.
and or our assumptions as e-discovery practitioners do not align with the underlying architecture and assumptions of Microsoft as a knowledge management system. And we get into a conflict there, and then they have to explain it and point me at documents, and I have to go test it and run back and forth. But the point is to everybody out there is they are listening, they are responsive, they're really busy, but it's a good thing. If you find problems or issues, don't just throw your hands up and say it's broken.
Okay.
Give it a chance. And if you don't have a contact in there, throw it through me. I'll look at it. I want to know about it anyway.
Cool.
But as a community, we all have to keep communicating back about this. And that's why I kind of started creating my little geek guides. So I had a place to put things where I could update it.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's great. Great to
And
know
so
too.
deep dive wise, in the last 2 months, I've had for my retainer clients that I work with regularly, whenever major changes come down the pipe, one of the things they have me do is come in and help support them in their validation testing. So help look over the shoulder and make and they don't have to reinvent the wheel with test plans and all that stuff. Um, SharePoint and Teams is an area that we I've looked at many times, but there's been a lot of changes, especially with Teams. The amazing growth of Teams. I've got clients who,
Yeah.
they might have 10,000 employees and they might have 25, 30,000 team sites. It's insane. And what I kept running into were areas where the system didn't seem to behave the way I assumed it would behave. And the PM team kept basically pointing me back at things and giving me more information about, no, you're just looking at it wrong. And I'm like, okay, and in the end, it turned out that a lot of it is architecture. It's the same way that last time we talked, I went into detail on the whole Microsoft substrate and the fact that what we're actually searching on and retrieving are compliance copies, not the originals that are held up in Azure. I'm not
Yeah.
going to go into that again, but on SharePoint, Teams, and OneDrive, what we've come into is an issue there whereby architecturally you have the surface layer that is presented to the user that isn't real. And then you have the storage layer underneath of it where everything is kept. And depending upon your choices in the type of team site it is, the templates that are used, and the settings that you've got going, it can change where things are kept and what you have to do in order to make sure that you found what you're looking for and you've locked it down for a hold or for search.
Okay.
So that's been kind of a big push recently is both A, understanding the bigger architecture and translating it for non-geeks like me, and then running actual tests on the documented search criteria, their KQL language versus the UI, because you can go into their UI and you can just say, hey, I want this date. I want everything sent to or from this person or these participants. And the UI is translating that to an actual KQL query that's being run against the Microsoft index, the graph API through that mechanism. And if you're going to do more than just retrieve entire mailboxes or entire SharePoint sites, then you've got to start understanding a little more what goes on under the surface. And you can't assume that your tenant with your legacy SharePoint forests, maybe you've done M&A activity and you've merged things in. You've got, maybe your engineering team has a couple of super guru SharePoint guys in there who love SharePoint and have created entire applications in it. So every tenant is different. It's kind of like, every custodian is sacred. They're all different. They all keep their data different ways. And that shouldn't discourage people, but you got to understand some basics. I just published out or just put up a quick guide for understanding the different types of SharePoint teams and OneDrive sites and where there are common misconceptions or gaps.
Okay.
I'll give you an easy example. Okay. Well, one is that Teams isn't real. Teams just sits is an application layer that sits on top of a SharePoint container and a mailbox. So it's an app that you're looking at, but underneath of that, and there's a Microsoft 365 group that owns those two objects and is named for them. When we do a purview search, we're actually targeting the group and the containers, not the application. So when you run a team search, you're not searching quote unquote teams, because teams is just a top layer application. You're actually searching the indexes on the SharePoint container and on the mailbox that's associated with it.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
why it becomes important are things like, in a Teams site, you can have like a big Teams group that's working on projects, and they may create sub channels so that everybody doesn't have to talk, be in the same chat all the time.
Right.
And the sub channels can be normal ones. They can be shared ones, meaning, hey, I've got people outside of the company and I want to have them in on this. So it's a different type of channel, or it may be private channels. Well, the private channels have their own SharePoint site. So if you target the parent site in Purview saying, I need to put this on hold, you haven't targeted the private channel site. It's not on hold. And if you run a search, you won't find it. Now, it does show up in the Purview eDiscovery picker, meaning you can go in there and say, if I have let's say that I've got a Matter One team site, and underneath of there's a private channel in there that is, for my experts, my Matter One expert site.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you know that, when you search for the Matter One in my sources, I can say, oh, look, there's my team site. Click. I'm going to put that on hold. You also got to look further down and see, okay, there's the Matter One, but there's the experts. Let me add that too.
So
it's just an
you
added
can
level.
add it to the hold, but you have to go through. You have to know that they're there and add them manually.
Right. Now, the naming convention generally is pretty good in that it uses the parent site as kind of the root on the name. But so it should be there. It should be very close. You should be able to add those in fairly easily. But you got to know it exists. And you got to know that it's different. That's where we get the gotchas. It's not that the system is broken. It's that it's behaving in ways that make perfect sense to the developers,
to the architects, yeah,
and the architects, but
yeah.
It doesn't always make sense to us, because from a custodian perspectives, I get this all the time where I'm supporting a matter. We're going in there and they're saying, okay, we're talking to our key custodian, and he says, well, everything to do with that particular contract is right here. And he literally can flip his laptop around and show us. It's right there. That might not actually exist. he's pointing at what he thinks is a team site when in fact it's a sub-site or a channel. And if you, depending upon what he's named it, trying to find it later becomes a pain.
Yep.
So that's really where the testing starts to get in depth and detail. I've really been struggling with myself because I've got a lot of new material from the most recent rounds. The Microsoft PM team was fabulous about answering my questions and telling me what needed to be an open ticket so we can find out why something that should work wasn't, and what is an actual, no, that doesn't actually work. For things like, key example right now is I've got clients all over the place that have pilot programs running with Copilot because all their users are asking for the Copilot recap on their Microsoft Teams meetings.
Okay. They
want the automatic notes. They want them, and once they've tried them, they won't let them go. Well, unfortunately, right now, the architect, the engineering behind that of where it's stored hasn't caught up, and we don't have, from Purview, we do not have access to where those meeting recaps are stored. They are not currently supported. You need to know that, because I'm going to go out there and search for things, and the custodian says, well, we had that meeting and Copilot gave us a recap and it had all the notes in it. Well, I did a search and I can't find it. No, you can't.
So where are they? Where does it store them?
They're stored like everything else. The true, what I would call, source of everything in Microsoft exists in Azure. It's up in the giant databases up there, and it exists as the back end of all those applications. And that's why they had to create.
Sounds like the big giant head from Mork and Mindy.
Correct. And they had to, and that's why, Tom, they had to actually develop that substrate service to synchronize the compliance copies that are being pushed into people's mailboxes, to the team's group mailboxes, and into the SharePoint sites, so that there was a clean copy that could be managed and synchronized against the original. But performance-wise, it made no sense for them to try to link every individual mailbox back and forth and make it all work at once to support these large applications.
Oh, is there a folder called recap, or I mean,
it's not there. They haven't moved it yet. It's in a database. I do have an actual PowerScript that I can use. If you go and get the meeting ID, and that's not like a meeting name, that's an ID
no,
number.
I get it. Yeah,
Yeah, if I
ID.
get the meeting ID, I can now go back and pull those recap from there. But it's I just tell everybody it's going to be there. I'd rather, like, I have clients who I've just said, put an expiry on it fast. Train the users, give them real policy that says this is not a record, it's not retained. If you have a meeting recap that has good information, one, you need to review it anyway, probably edit it,
yeah,
fix it. So copy it from there, put it into the actual meeting notes.
Grab it right away. Yeah.
Put it into a place that actually has normal retention, normal retrieval, and everything else on it until Microsoft catches up.
Yep.
And they will.
Fair enough.
By the way, on meetings, the other key thing for those in our world is the dates on meetings are the date that the invitation was sent, not the date of the meeting. And that's a big one that's come back and haunt you.
Wow.
Especially because for recurring meetings.
Is it the date the first invitation went out and it was set? It could be one a month, but it's
unless the meeting owner updated it and sent it again, it's not there.
Wow.
So just again, lots of little things that we run into. And I think that in one sense, our industry has gotten lazy in that it was always in the best interest or the financial interest of our providers and the folks who were handling the e-discovery down the path from corporate, from the collections, to say, just give me everything now.
Yeah.
Give me every mailbox, give me every SharePoint site, everything is related. That is not possible in a high percentage of cases anymore. There's physically not able to move that much data off the system fast enough in order to meet the new accelerated deadlines since the federal rules were updated.
Yeah.
Once they updated those federal rules and we suddenly went down, our time zone shrunk. Now, if I have a case where I've got 50 custodians and counsel comes in and says, I want everything, I'm like, you can't have it. We need to start searching. We need to be selective. We need to start pulling.
Yeah.
I mean, you can pull time periods, and the way that I handle with most counsel is I never tell them no. I always say that's going to be difficult, and that may be, we can start on it. Let's prioritize what you need the most.
What are you looking for? Yeah, what are you looking for first?
Let's get you what you need up front, and then you can come back and tell me if you still need more than that as we go.
Yeah.
But the meeting dates are tricky. Also in SharePoint, the other big thing that I ran into, and I do not know, I've only tested this in like 4 tenants so far. But in every one of the tenants I've tested, the created by and modified by metadata fields that are crawled and they are indexed in the index, but they don't seem to work on a Purview search. Instead, it looks like Purview is looking at the merged author field, which is pulling from those fields most of the time, and it's also pulling from the internal author that's stored inside of a Word document or or any other Office document to populate. Because I was looking through my test set at one point recently. And I'm like, why is that authored by the IRS? Oh, that was an IRS notice. And it was buried in the original document, even though I'd saved it. It actually, it pulled the Greg Buckles from the created by, and then it pulled the author out of the actual document itself and pulled it up into that author field.
Okay.
However, I'm not I'm not 100% sure on the completeness of how that works on historical type systems. We forget that our SharePoint systems have now been around for 10 years, 20 years. And that we are inheriting systems that had different settings on them before
Yep.
M&A activity. And so those field information are not always as reliable as we want them to be.
Yep.
I,
Okay.
I keep stumbling into lots of neat things and lots of stuff that I'm like, oh, really? That's going to be fun. And I'm trying to prioritize sharing these right here for people, for our audience. What are the ones that have the biggest potential gotchas? It's
Right.
not a kill list. It's not me saying that, Microsoft is broken, et cetera. It's what do I need to test in my
Yeah.
environment so that I know
It's going
how
to have the
my
most
data.
impact for your clients and the general population.
Yeah.
Now, you said when we talked earlier, you're going to put this out on a link someplace. Is that something you want me to share, that report?
Um, I'm still debating on it, and part of it is because the
That's
more that I
fine.
change on it, the more that I test, Microsoft themselves are making so many changes so fast, and having just found a lot of issues that I thought, and having passed that along, I'm not sure how many of those things will suddenly fix themselves in the background.
Yeah.
However, what I would say is this: is anyone out there who's struggling with this, just throw me an email.
Just
My
reach
email's
out
out
to
there.
you.
Yeah,
Fair
reach
enough.
out to just pop up on eDiscovery Journal. Look in the Geek Guides first because I did publish a couple of pieces up there just this week that give more detail on SharePoint and the rest of it, in terms of that architecture and the quick gotchas that break down like the different teams channel types and what can be searched and where is it stored. Um, but I've got another internal document that I'm working on right now that is SharePoint in general, and then a second one that is Teams meeting components, because that
Okay.
on the last couple of cases I've worked, the Teams meetings have just become they're not as important as the mobile phone chat, but it's close.
It's getting there. Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
and
Well,
so
if there's ever anything you want me to throw out there, just let me know, and I can always go back in and edit it to the front end of the of this
yeah, we'll have
video.
some links in. I would just basically say to everyone out there is like, it's like everything else. Just throw me an email like
Yeah.
everybody does.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to share. I'm happy to share amongst peers. I'm just hesitating on publishing things
I hear you.
that might not be true tomorrow. And
Yep.
that's why what I have up in the Geek Guides is a wiki so I can fix it. But there's enough things that are in motion right now that
Too
even
many
that I'm
moving
waiting
parts.
on.
Yeah, I know. I
Yeah.
totally get it. So what I will say though is that we are we are filming this a couple of days before Legal Week in New York City, which Greg is going to be attending. So if you're going to be there and have questions, shoot him an email. Try to set up a time to meet with them. I'm sure people are going to be hounding you to talk about this
I
stuff.
I will say this about Legal Week this year. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on. It the change in the venue has
Yeah,
forced a lot of changes.
yeah.
It's worked the way that ALM seemed to want it to work in that the number of exhibitors on the floor. It has forced providers who got kind of clever and instead of spending money for exhibitor booths and other areas directly
One
within it, they
across the
adjacent.
street or up the
Yeah,
block or
they're in
yeah,
the Warwick. They're over there. There's just
yeah, yeah,
right now it's all in the North Javits Center. The number of actual exhibitors was a distinct increase, so they're going to get some more money. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
yeah.
Um,
No,
my schedule, my briefing schedule is completely slammed, thank God. But I always say to people, just reach out. And if I've
yeah,
got even 5 minutes, I always love to talk and hear what people are just. I'm going to be there, and what I also say is the things I'm looking for this year is I need help from the audience. Is if you find new things that are out there where people are doing selective remote mobile collections, throw
okay.
me in, send me a booth number. Um, if if there's any other fun applications that you're finding that help with understanding or detangling what I call the Microsoft groups world that's not custom code that I have to write every time. If somebody's got a new app, throw it at me, give it to me. I'm looking for those. I'm always interested in new advances in foreign language cases because since I went back into the trenches last year taking cases again, the majority of them have been overseas.
There you go. Yeah,
So
good deal.
I've been having to deal with all kinds of language issues, and there's lots of new stuff coming out. I am going to be looking at everybody's new AI, but frankly, they're plastering AI on as a label over everything, and it's really hard
Oh,
now to
yeah,
tell.
yeah,
It's like I'm walking up to the booths and just and asking folks like, you say AI, what does it do?
yeah. What does that mean? I tell people say, "Oh, it's AI." I said, "You're telling me that you're using AI is like telling me that you listen to music. That doesn't tell me anything, right? Doesn't
Yeah,
tell me anything substantive other than that your ears work.
right. And if you're going to tell me it's AI and you can't tell me what it
What
is
it
and
does,
how it
yeah,
works,
yeah,
well, if you can't give me an actual even high level understanding of how it works, then it's a black box. And as someone, you and I both have done too many expert engagements where a poor magistrate is saying, well, how did that tar work? Or how did this work? And we could understand those and we could translate and explain it. A lot of this new AI stuff, the people who are using it have no clue.
they got no idea. Yeah,
It's just magic.
yeah. No,
I
I,
mean,
I, I agree. I'm
yeah.
looking forward to your feedback after the show. We'll circle back to each other in a couple of weeks.
Oh, before I
Yes,
forget, one more big red sign for all of our Purview users out there:
yes,
exports.
yes.
Um, the export process of the old system
Uh-huh.
involved they staged it. They staged a cop. They built your export in Azure, and they sent you a secured link that you had to use a little application to download
Okay.
because it could talk to Azure and bring it down. When they went to the new UI, the new UI, the default export mechanism did away with that, partially because I think they were realizing the fact that they were holding all these giant export sets in storage and it was costing them a fortune. So now it is building your export in session, and it is giving it to you as a browser download. That is a huge, huge, huge problem because we all know that connectivity is variable and it gets worse the more we ask for it. And as e-discovery practitioners, if I'm there asking for 100 gig downloading in a web browser, the odds are pretty good. No matter how I chunk it, it may break it.
It's going to have a
Or
problem. Yeah.
so what I'm seeing in a practical level, and Microsoft does have a very nice document with export guidelines that is buried in there that I didn't find. And it took the PM team, thank you, Nina Chen, I appreciate it, for sending me the note saying, did you read this? I'm like, no, I missed it. And it's got details on both changes you can make to your browser settings that make it much easier, how to whitelist things that keep your system from constantly checking and interrupting the flow. And there is a setting in there that an administrator can make, which will go back to the old download link. And you can use that link now with a download manager on your desktop so that it tracks and validates what it's asking for, what it's receiving, and it will restart and it will get it complete. The thing to watch for the practical download of why is this important for our folks who somebody asks you to download a very large custodian or a big SharePoint site. It's because the browser doesn't throw errors. If it has a problem or an issue, it'll show up, it'll look good, but we're finding a lot of the zips are malformed and they won't process. We've actually had to explode them and then recompress them so that we could feed them into our e-discovery platforms for my clients. And or it'll just drop chunks out of stuff. It'll truncate it. This is also an issue if you
Not good.
do
No.
it'll also this is the same kind of issue we get if you have a one of the classic techniques I've used forever for attorneys is attorney will walk in and say, we got a demand letter, here's our people, we think what our targets are, here's a list of the key terms that we think but we're not sure of. I would take that, I would run the searches or the client we'd run the searches, we'd export out report only, and I would take that giant items.csv, dump it into either Excel or into a database, crunch it down, and be able to come back and say, okay, here's all the flavors of it. Here's what we found. Here's what matches. Here's what doesn't. Basically, looking at the file names and the rest of the stuff. now with the new export process, that report seems to be have some definite limits as to how many items you can have in that report before it starts breaking. And
Okay.
so we start getting, again, we get a chunk where also it'll malform it, we can't get it out. And so just watch your size and your results. And if you have to break it chronologically, it's one way we've done it. I've broken it by source.
Yeah.
Just be careful with very
Careful.
large exports. They're gonna come back to bite you. Um, Try it with switching over to the link, the secured link. They do allow you. It's a potential security issue because that link will work whoever has it. But you can set how many hours before it expires.
Right.
So you can basically say, I need this, I need it for the next 8 hours.
Right.
This doesn't help with, I've had Sierra Point sites that have taken 16 to download. Um,
Yeah.
but
So just be aware.
yeah, be aware. It's a moving target. That's why I'm hesitant. Like before, I was publishing stuff where as long as it had a longevity of 3 to 6 months, I was comfortable publishing information. Now it's moving so fast that I'm more like, if you've got an issue or problem, call me.
Yeah.
Throw me a note. Let's talk about it. I can tell you what the current status is. I am happy to share my internal reports with folks
Yeah.
on things. Just don't publish them or rename them other things.
Don't put them out there for everybody to read and yell at me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't mind that. I mean, I'm happy to stand behind it, and I'm one of the first people who's happy to say, "Oh, well, that was what I found here,
Yeah,
but
but it can
I
change.
was
Yeah,
wrong."
you're right. Good Frank. It could change by the time somebody looks at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Greg, thanks a ton as always. Most
Good session.
informative. Wish I were joining you in New York, but I won't be able to make it. I'm between conferences here and saving up for the next one.
I
And
get that.
yeah, and uh, and my allergies have become having a huge allergy attack, and
Oh.
New York Central Park in the spring is not a place to be when my allergies are operating.
Well, we aren't going to be close enough anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We're
Good
we're
point.
we're down
You'd be
on the
downwind.
shoreline now.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
we're pretty far for that, and I know you're New Orleans based, but I'm Houston based, so we've got
yeah.
the Cedar Bloom is just now starting down here
There
too.
you go.
So,
There you go. Well, thanks again. Always a pleasure talking to you. Look forward to catching up after New York, and once again for everybody, if you're going to Legal Week, Greg will be there. Shoot him an email and try to set up a time to talk with him. Cigars will help. I'll give you that. Help you.
I will, although your favorite co-host Rocky unfortunately just looks like he's not going to make it this year
Oh
because
no, I
right,
spoke to Rocky this morning. He's
yeah.
in and out of his bunker constantly with the bombings going on, and yeah, it's just a terrible situation. So no, he's even if he wanted to, I don't think he could get a plane out of there.
No.
So we'll keep him in our thoughts because um, although both Israeli and U.S. forces are on the defensive. I think his message to me this morning was something like 10 or 11 missiles have gotten through. I don't know how many missiles. A handful of missiles have gotten through, and maybe it was 10 or 11 people have died. So there have been some limited casualties. So
Well, our best to everybody out there, and just hold it still. And frankly, we have enough just trying to keep up with our clients' issues and the rest of stuff and the rest
yeah,
of the world.
yeah, yeah.
Please
God
stop
bless him.
hurting each other.
God bless him. Yeah.
Yep.
So, all right. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.